Please stand for the flag salute. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act, I wish to announce that the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend a meeting of bodies at which any business affecting their interest is discussed or acted upon. Notices announcing the date, time, and place for this special meeting were sent to all concerned individuals, associations, and sent to the Union County local source in accordance with Chapter 231 PL 1975. At this time, I'll take the roll. Mayor Radist.
Here.
Councilperson Fox.
Here.
Councilperson Gould.
Here.
Board of Education President McCann.
Here.
And Board of Education member Mr. Bonner.
Here.
Okay, the first item we have on the agenda, Madam Mayor, is approval for the minutes from March 7th, 2018 and April 9th, 2018. Need a resolution, I need a mover and a seconder.
Second.
Okay, I'll call the roll. Mr. Bonner?
Yes.
Ms. McCann?
Yes.
Councilman Gould?
Yes.
Councilwoman Fox?
Yes.
And Mayor Radist.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. I cannot tell you how great it is to see so many people in the audience. I'm serious. I think there were 4 or 5 last year. And it's good. And the council rolled out the introduction of the city budget last week, and no one was here. So this is what's very impressive and important in our community, that we get involved. So thank you all for coming out tonight. I know it's not easy with babysitters and so forth. We will have Superintendent Chang and Mr. Pepe will speak about the budget. Then I'm going to ask members of the Board of School Estimate if they have any questions of Superintendent Chang and Mr. Pepe, and then I will open it up for public comment, after which the members of the board will make a statement if they so choose. So that's sort of kind of the order of things. Other than that, I don't have any other announcements. Please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can everyone hear me? Okay, great, because I tend to speak really low, and I want to make sure everyone gets a chance to hear me tonight. So tonight is about the budget, and I want to keep the conversation focused on the budget. However, I know people will hear about class size, so I will address the class size concern up front. I want to state that any sections that may need to be added can be added within the confines of the current 2019-2020 budget. Final approval of the budget tonight will not limit our ability to properly section our elementary classes. I have met with many of you, I've spoken to many of you, I've gotten emails from many of you, and I've heard your concerns and heard your thoughts. And we have committed to not be at or above our maximum guideline numbers. Barring any movement in enrollment, we are anticipating that the proposed section reductions will not occur. Additionally, we will add sections where needed to keep my commitment to have no elementary class section at or above the maximum policy guidelines at the end of the sectioning process. So to be clear, this commitment will directly address the Jefferson first grade concern and the impact on the special needs populations that go in and out of those classrooms. The Lincoln Hubbard second grade going to third grade, that concern will be addressed. The Brayton, Franklin classes would remain the same. That concern will be addressed. In Washington will also be addressed as we look at those numbers. Everything that I just said will be finalized by the either early summer or end of summer as we go through our process. Now I kind of want to bring it back to what we do as an organization, what we do as a group. We are always open to listening. I'm more than happy to sit down and meet with anyone, reach out to me, and I'm open to having those conversations. And I think tonight's budget, as I go into it and transition into it, I think, models what we do as a community and models what we should do continuously moving forward to better our schools. So as I segue into our budget, I just want to express that tonight is a very important night. With a budget that continues to allow Summit Public Schools to thrive. And within this budget, we have all the elements that will cater and focus on each and every individual child in each and every individual grade. And that's something to be very proud of. I wanted to be able to thank the board for all the time and effort that was put into the questions and vetting of the budget. I want to thank my administrative cabinet for putting in the time and, quite frankly, dealing with my questions. I want to thank my principals, my supervisors, for all the effort that they put in, providing feedback and giving us good information to put us in a direction where we can be successful at all of our schools. I want to thank the business office, central office staff for all that they do day in and day out, crunching all the numbers. And I certainly like to thank our committees, the Ed and Operations Committee, for understanding the vision and the mission of what we're trying to do here as an educational organization. This budget allows for us to add additions to a K-2 phonics program, math workshop in grades K through 5, add speech and debate course at the middle school that allows for broader access for all our students, digital arts component in the middle school, a real-world math application for our high school, and targeted sequencing for our science programs. This budget also has in it universal full-day kindergarten. We have worked on this for many years, and we have seen the effects of the current program, and it has yielded positive results. From our observations of parents, teachers, and principals of our primary centers, I'm talking about both principals because I know we had to switch. We've had nothing but rave reviews, great reports on academic progress, on social and emotional growth, and targeted instructions at the master's hand, all of which benefit our students moving into first grade. Additionally, we've also seen that more time with our students has allowed our teachers to expose our students to self-expression, self-regulation, and self-discovery. Skills that set up our students not only as they move up each grade, but even further past their secondary educational experience. Most importantly, with the full-day kindergarten program, we are able to offer and we're able to foster a love of learning from the moment our youngest learners enter our school system. Our budget not only has those components, but it stays true to what we want to do, and that's to support many of our strong academic programming, to stay current with state requirements, continued growth in differentiated learning so that we're able to accommodate for each individual learner. This budget also helps us prepare our students for future global competition. It helps our teachers and students adapt to change. And this budget allows for continued high-quality programming and expanded opportunities for all our students at every level. And it stays true to the idea at the very center of student success is the Summit student experience, and our budget provides that. I'm incredibly proud of this budget and the inclusion of full-day kindergarten to universally support our youngest students. Universal FDK, should it pass tonight, is many years in the making. The process of getting here shows everything that is great about the community of Summit. Parent and community participation, partnership between school and city, honest and thoughtful discussion and debate, and mutual respect beyond our disparate views. In how many communities do former board members come back, years after they've ended their service, to weigh in on important educational issues? I think we have seen how committed this community is to great education for its students. Just as importantly, we have seen how civil and productive dialogue and discourse is possible, which is something that is much too rare in our world today. And this is why my staff and I are proud to present this budget and to serve our great schools.
Thank you, Superintendent Chang. From the business office, I'll start by saying that the budget was approved by the Executive County Superintendent and the Executive County School Business Administrator for Union County with no changes. So the numbers that were put before the community and public on the 7th are still the same tonight. That is in the resolution that the Board of School Estimate is going to take action on. The fiscal year, which is the school year to school year, is up 2.599 or 2.6. And that translates to a reduced impact of 1.978 on the calendar year, which the taxes are assessed because, as I reported before, we take half of the prior year and half of the current year to get to the 2019 impact. The impact on the average home is an increase of $137.92, and that's inclusive of all the programs in the budget, including the universal FDK. I can also begin by saying that development, implementation, and oversight of the budget process is a very long, arduous process that does start back at the end of September in preparation for the months of October, November, and December, in which we work closely with our building principals and supervisors within the district. We then move into the review process of the budget that spans both January, February, and March, and that is the review time for members of the Board of Education through the ABLE Operations Committee, where they do ask a lot of questions and get a lot of the detail to support the rationale behind the actual budget. We then go out to the full board and we start having dialogue with Board of School Estimate members to ensure that they are properly equipped with the information and data that they need to make a good decision. Each school year, one of the things that we do is we talk about the what-ifs. And obviously this year, the discussion really came down to discussion about class size or potential changes in class size once the budget is struck. What I can tell you is each school year, the budget is subject to changes that occur within that year, requiring adjustments due to unanticipated changes in staffing, special education needs, and/or any other issues that may arise. Changes in personnel can either increase or decrease after the budget has been approved. Those decisions will have an immediate impact on the budgetary line item within the budget, and as such will require transfers to ensure that the budget remains intact. Each month when the board takes action on the bills list, you'll see a statement that the requirements of NJAC 6823A requires that no line item can be overexpended, and that we do in fact have enough in the budget to make sure that we cover each of the line items. In other words, if the superintendent decides that there are additional sections needed, the budget will be adjusted accordingly, with necessary funds coming through savings from salaries, benefits that are due to either retirement, resignation, or leaves. In some cases, the additional section may even be made up by a corresponding decrease based on decrease in enrollment. We'll continue to monitor those changes and adjust accordingly as we do every year. This is nothing new for us. I would like to recognize the principals and the supervisors for all their hard work and input and help in development of the budget as they do every year. We certainly cannot do it alone. I would also like to thank Chris Bonner. I don't know where he ended up. Oh, right over here. Chair of the operations. You were allowed to stay up here, right? But I'd like to thank Chris for chairing operations and for his support and progress in this campaign here of the budget this year, and also Vanessa Primack and Michael Colon for their diligence and insights in helping us come to the final conclusions that we have. Additionally, I'd like to thank my staff and start with Kathy Sarno. I sure make sure she does a lot of work, right? But Kathy is really instrumental in a lot of the data input and all the information that goes to the county. And trust me when I tell you, we send a budget like this with support like that, and the county goes through every line item. So that's all I have for you tonight, Madam Mayor, and members of the Board of School Estimate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Pepe. Do any members of the Board of School Estimate have questions for Superintendent Chang or Assistant Superintendent Pepe?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have no further questions, but that's not because, it's because Superintendent Chang and Assistant Superintendent Pepe have answered the questions, and I thank them for that.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, a couple people were unable to get into the room because it was so crowded, so and at the beginning of your statement, Mr. Chang, so I'm going to ask if you would just repeat the beginning part where you talk about the existing sections in the 5 schools.
Not about the budget part?
Yeah.
We also have 4 seats down in front, if you're interested.
Yeah, there's chairs here, if anyone wants to sit down. Just because they might not have heard that, and it might, preempt questions.
Sure. Again, I'm just reading my earlier comments. Any sections that may need to be added can be added within the confines of the current 2019-2020 budget. Final approval of the budget tonight does not limit our ability to properly section our elementary classes. Where am I? Just lost my, okay. We have heard your concerns and your thoughts, and we're committed not to be at or above our maximum guideline numbers. Barring any drastic movement in enrollment, we are anticipating that the proposed section reductions will not occur. Additionally, we will add sections where needed to keep with my commitment that no elementary class section will be at or above our maximum policy guidelines at the end of the sectioning process.
Great, thank you very much. All right, I would like to invite any members of the public who have comments to please come to the podium. I would ask that you give your name and address, and kind of keep it to 3 minutes if we can. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Haley Telling. I live at 215 Oak Ridge Avenue. Good evening to all board members, Superintendent Chang, Common Council members, and Mayor Radist, and everyone else who took the time to come here this evening. We have all gathered here this evening to impress upon you our town's support and dedication to smaller class sizes. After the weeks of calls, letters, meetings, and petitions, we thank you for changing your stance on the class size threshold. Your memo on Friday was received by all with mixed emotions. There was a lot of uncertainty to the terminology used. We appreciate you taking the time to provide further clarity this morning at our meeting and here for all this evening. If anything should be taken away from the past 3 weeks, it is that the current system of major decisions regarding areas such as class size should not fall solely on the shoulders of the superintendent and the Board of Education. You may have access to numbers, but the real-life perspective of the situation is missing. These children are not just numbers. They should be represented as such. True input from the teachers and principals needs to be considered. True input from the specialists needs to be considered, and true input from parents needs to be considered. The current system you are using seems to be broken as of what has transpired. Say what you will, but teachers and principals do not seem to feel they have a safe space to share and they will actually be heard. Most parents were taken aback to learn that the class size would be set at a max of 25 and not open another section until the magical number of 26. Especially after learning that there was room in the budget to set this class size threshold lower. So now parents are completely unsure of the decisions that are being made. To not connect the dots and realize the current system doesn't work would be resting on our laurels. This morning you mentioned the PTO President's Council. Do you know what a PTO's president's duties are? Do you know how much work it takes to be head of the PTO? Between the fundraising, events, and admin responsibilities, they don't truly have the time to reach out to the parents the way a role of an advocate would. PTO presidents have enough to do. We suggest that there be a position of a parent-student advocate on the Board of Education. Advocates at each school could be put in place, as well as special needs advocates, an IEP and 504 advocate, and a diversity advocate. There is a strong need for all students to be represented. There is a real need for this role to be autonomous of the educators who need to report to the superintendent. After all, schools are here for and about the students of our community and not just bureaucracy, correct? My oldest daughter's teacher last year worked to not only instill lessons of reading, math, and academics in the classroom, he also worked to instill a strong moral compass in each of his students. He always said, if you know what's right, do what's right. In regards to operating in a more transparent manner with all students' best interests in mind, I urge you to work to put some true advocacy positions in place. And I implore you guys, if you know what's right, do what's right. Thank you very much. And I do think that you guys are trying your best, but I think there is room here for something like this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Evening, guys.
You can-
A lot of people in
excuse
front
me,
are familiar with
excuse
me.
me,
My
sorry.
name's Dan Miller.
Dan?
Dan,
Yes.
I think the mic works best if you're a little bit
Few feet
farther
away from
away
it?
from it. Yes.
Plus, I have the teacher voice. I probably don't need the mic anyway. I am the president of the SEA, for those of you that don't know me. Plus, I'm a 29-year veteran in Summit schools, coach lacrosse, coach soccer, so I'm very familiar with Summit. And basically, I'm here to represent the interests of we represent custodian secretaries and certificated, but anything that could have a negative impact on our members is of interest to us. And it became clear to me, members made it very clear that it was time for us to step forward and make our voice heard on class size. Class size now and class size going into the future. Unfortunately, the decision regarding class size was reached without really getting input from classroom teachers. And classroom teachers are the best able to speak on the impact that a larger class size would have on students, on them, and on students. That's why I'm here. Increased class sizes certainly would make it more difficult for members to deliver the quality of instruction that they're used to delivering at this point. Academic and social development of students would be hurt. I looked at many research articles, but one kind of summed it up concisely by saying the more students a teacher is responsible for, the harder it is to teach effectively. Increased class size is going to mean less one-on-one time, which despite our teachers' best efforts, and believe me, our teachers work their tails off to try to make sure students do the best they can, will lead to reduced outcomes for students. Some students in a larger class size may develop gaps in skills they need to succeed. Additionally, student behavior is going to be negatively impacted in larger class sizes, particularly elementary. If teachers have less time to devote to each student, some students are going to develop those behaviors, those negative behaviors, in an attempt to get the teacher's attention. These behaviors will affect the entire class and prevent other students from learning. These gaps in negative behaviors will probably stay with students through middle and high school. Actually, they do, because I'm in the middle school, so I know. This will prevent students and their classmates from reaching their academic potential. I'm keeping it a little bit short. I had a whole bunch of research things for you, but from experience in front of students, I know that people glaze over after a certain amount of time. So I'm just going to sum up by saying this. The SEA strongly urges our superintendent, business administrator, and Board of Education to provide the resources necessary to keep the class sizes small, keeping them closer to the size they are now. I know that Dr. Chang's talked about averages, but those averages are higher than our current elementary class sizes, and it's better if we keep them where they are. Most of the studies I looked at said that improvements in student outcomes really start to happen when you're 20 or less in an elementary classroom. Also indicated that the longer that they were in the smaller classrooms, the longer the benefits lasted into middle school and high school age. So I do think it's very incumbent upon you guys. And I think money spent on that is and will continue to be money always well spent. I think it should be a major consideration in future budgets. I'm glad to hear that you have the flexibility within this budget to deal with the units you need. And we know it's administrative prerogative. We know that it's not something that we have. It's not something that's negotiable. And that's why we didn't speak up earlier. But we felt compelled now that we needed to speak up on the issue. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Hello, my name is Stephen Spur. I live at 61 Woodland Avenue. We've heard from class size parents. We've heard from the employees of the district. I'll speak on behalf of young families and taxpayers. I'm concerned about the financial impact of the budget, pure and simple. And actually, Summit's unique in the fact, and you know this well as members of the Board of School Estimate, this is the first time that elected officials here in town have seen and will formally vote on this budget. We thank, of course, the Board of Education for their hard work.
Well, it's not the first time we've seen it, just want
First time you're voting formally on the budget.
Correct, but we've seen it before.
Of course, yes. And I want to particularly reiterate the words of then council candidate, my my Councilman Matt Gould in Ward 1 on October 19, 2017 on the campaign trail. When asked about universal full-day kindergarten, Matt replied, and I'll try to read it in full for you so it's a fair assessment. I support free universal full-day kindergarten in the Summit Public Schools. Our current system imposes a middle-class tax on Summit citizens and creates institutional inequality. Every study I've read suggests that early education is the most critical phase of a student's journey. Completing his thought, though, then candidate Gould, now Councilman Gould, and Board of School Estimate Member Gould, closed with saying, however, I am vehemently opposed to raising residential property taxes. I believe that if our elected officials and educators are creative and collaborative, we can find a way to provide this necessary service without increasing the budget. So I'm simply here to say and to ask, please vote no. Please return the budget to the Board of Education, and let's look for that creative solution that doesn't raise taxes and hopefully sees you reelected to a second term. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. That's all right. Was it on? Yes.
We need to take a number machine.
I know, I feel like I'm a delegate.
We are indeed very civilized.
Hi, I'm Sara Bird. I'm from 28 Dogwood Drive. I just wanted to say that I've been so inspired by the outpouring of support from the community in response to the important issue of class size. This has been evident in the well-prepared comments and the direct requests of the 25 informed speakers and the standing room only showing of parents back at the Board of Ed meeting a week or so, gosh, it feels like a month ago, but it was only like a week ago. And then in the flood of 1,000 members of our community who signed the Keep Class Sizes Small in Summit petition that was just put up on Friday. So that has been just so impressive. There's been a clear call to action for the Board of Ed to take concrete steps to assure smaller class sizes, and I do want to sincerely thank the Board of Education and the Superintendent Chang for listening and taking specific actions for next year, including their recent decision not to make the 5 originally projected section cuts, but rather to reallocate those resources to the 5 classes across our district that were at risk of being classes of 24 or more next year and no longer are. I also appreciate the important change to the section planning process, which will now trigger adding a class section before, not after, the top of the guideline range is hit, and that no longer uses 25 as an acceptable maximum class size cap. Going forward, together as a community, I really would like to see us work together next year to do 2 things. First, we should establish a formal class size policy with caps that gets us back to the average district-wide class size consistent with the 2016-2000 levels of between 19 and 20. This policy needs to be fully integrated with the 2021 budget process and should not be subject to the sole discretion of one person. Second, I would like to see us work together with the district and the Board of Education to create school-specific and district-wide structures and communication tools that foster transparency, accountability, and bring together the school community to collaborate and advocate in the best interest of Summit school-age children. Like Haley, I believe that could involve adding a parent advocate position on the Board of Ed that is responsible for gathering input from individual parent advocates at each Summit school. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nina Lerner. I'm at 61 Eggers Court, and I am currently a parent of a first grade student at Jefferson Elementary. I greatly appreciate Superintendent Chang and the district administration for meeting with me and other concerned parents regarding class size. Thank you for listening, responding, and changing your perspective to return to upholding the district guidelines going forward. One aspect I still feel unsettled about is how the inclusion programs that are unique to Jefferson are being taken into consideration with respect to class size. I feel uncertain that what you are currently saying today is truly different from planning last year. Historically, the first grade at Jefferson, on average, had 17 children per section, inclusive of the ABA and LDD students. This year, there's 27 or more. It's 10 more children in the classroom, a 60% increase in class size. This academic year is the first time there are only 2 sections of first grade classes rather than 3 for the past 7 years of data I gathered from printed paper directories. Despite the fact that the total number of children enrolled in first grade, according to those directories, is higher than any other year. It's not good for our children and it's not good for our teachers. I have learned this situation occurred because the administration is only looking at homeroom size. Homeroom size is not the same as class size. As the class size policy stands today, there is no distinction between homeroom size and class size. This is seriously problematic for the Jefferson community. Every time a child walks into a classroom for learning, the number of people in that particular room, in that precise moment, is what the child is experiencing as his or her class size. Overcrowded rooms lead to overstimulated children and a plethora of problems. To date, class size planning has been based on homeroom size alone. And while district administration may now understand that Jefferson's first grade this year is not sectioned appropriately, there's nothing protecting our community from this issue arising again in the future. As such, we'd like a clarification to this effect be established in the official class size policy. If there's a class size cap, then it must pertain to all classes throughout a child's day and not limited to homeroom size. Class size caps must apply to specials also, including but not limited to subjects such as library, technology, music, gym, and art. Educational equity must be a factor when determining class size for a specific cohort. This comes in the form of good, caring teachers who not only provide academic excellence, but social emotional support as well. Additional aides and coaches do not give our student population what they need. They just add more bodies to an already crowded classroom. We want more teachers and smaller class sizes in the way that the schools have operated for many years previously. We urge you to further invest in the teachers, invest in the Jefferson community, invest in our children with special needs, and establish new guidelines so that they have equal experiences and as their peers across the district. Thank you.
Thank you, Nina.
Good evening. My name is Eric Salcido. I reside at 28 Wade Drive. And I'm here to speak in support of this budget and in support of universal full-day kindergarten. But before I do, I want to thank everyone who has participated in this process, from the administration to the residents who spoke both in the last 2 meetings in favor of full-day kindergarten, and those who voiced their concerns about full-day kindergarten. Because, as was stated in the previous meeting, there is, some would say, a lack of data or not a wealth of data to base this decision on. And a lot of the parents and parents of children who have graduated from kindergarten shared their experiences and their own personal truths, which I appreciated, because this is an opportunity when the policy that we create here tonight directly impacts the residents of Summit. And I want to share my family's truth with full-day kindergarten. And my daughter is in first grade at Washington Elementary and attended Wilson full-day kindergarten last year. And she was in the wraparound program after school. And she asked one of her fellow classmates, who are those other kids? And her classmate responded, those are the poor kids, because they were the ones in the half-day program. And now, when this program was developed years ago, it was no one's intention to create this system of perceived inequality in our school system. But this inequality is visible to the youngest members of our community, kindergarteners. They know that there's a difference between those who have and those who have not. So this evening, we have an opportunity to rectify this situation, to bring change, overdue change to Summit. And I'm asking for unanimous support of this budget. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Carlos Ferrero, 42 Broad. I want to echo some statements that were made, some very strong points that were made earlier. around the issue of transparency and a collaborative process. At our meeting earlier this month, I spoke in my capacity as both a resident, but also in my capacity as a high school principal. And one of the things that I mentioned was that under our process in New York City, believe it or not, the very largest school district in the United States, we have actually done some very progressive things that I'd like to suggest and share with all of you. One of the things that we do is that we actually have a team at every school level in which parents, teachers, and because I'm at a high school, students collaborate with me and the rest of my admin staff in deciding what are our priorities for any given school year. And we engage in this very collaborative process in which we allocate funds to meet the needs that we have in our particular school. This process, these teams are called school leadership teams. And it's a very difficult experience because we don't always see eye to eye, but it's a very important experience. Because when I listened earlier, and you all said thanks to all the people that had collaborated in this process of creating a budget that you're very proud of, one of the constituencies that you didn't mention is right here, right? All these people came today, and these are actually, people that are very invested in everything that goes on in the schools, but they did not have any part in a process that has a direct impact on their families. So I want to encourage you to take this very, very seriously, because some of the issues around trust, some of the issues around perception could have been avoided had we, the parents, and the rest of the constituencies that are impacted by the decisions that are made here, had we been involved in this process from the beginning, right? So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rob Rarson. I'm from 28 Dogwood Drive, and that was kind of a mic drop. So it's a little hard to go after those comments. I would like to thank the Board of Education and the administration for making time and listening to the parents and other stakeholders. Following Superintendent Chang's comments tonight, my understanding is there's likely will be no outsized 24, 25 student class sizes in our elementary schools next year, and that we will return to the 19 to 20 student average sizes that persisted just a year ago. Your willingness to listen and be flexible is very much appreciated. I also want to make it clear that the parents were not confused. They really understood this issue. They understood the numbers. They understood the 5 sections, and they were definitely not confused, as was shown by the 1,000 signers of the petition. They were well educated. They know what's going on in our communities. Which really leads me to my next point, a lot of which has been covered, but I'm going to go through it very quickly. The need for complete transparency. And so I heard tonight, when a lot of the board members were speaking, around that there is a forum for open comment. The reality is that the information that's given out is not transparent enough for people to ponder and think through in order to give really thoughtful comment. So an example of this was the 5 sections being cut. Saying there are 5 sections to be cut doesn't allow the parents to understand what it really means as to class sizes. And so you can't really give feedback. We had to put that math together ourselves in order to come to a determination of what it meant and get the changes made. And the second point I would ask, and I think this is a really important point, is around the permanent and active stakeholder advocacy group that would be formed by the Board of Education along with administration. It would be collaborative, the goal of which would be really to get you, as the Board of Education, closer to your customer base, the residents of Summit, and truly understand what the issues are that the parents are facing, the teachers are facing, all the stakeholders in our education system are facing. It would give you a forum on which to run out new ideas, and it gives you a forum as well to see what issues are percolating through the community that you should be aware of and be dealing with. I understand that not everybody is going to be happy with every single answer, and you're not going to satisfy everybody. That's never going to happen, but at least there will be a forum. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has any comments?
Thought we'd be here till 10:30. I'm Mike McTiernan, 55 Fernwood Road, parent, resident, taxpayer, and I am a common council member, so I know how, and I've sat on this Board of School Estimate, so I know how difficult and engaged that Board of School Estimate members need to be. So I do want to thank again everyone from all the administration people, the teachers who gave their input into the budget, Superintendent Chang, Mr. Pepe, as well as everyone on the board. It is a lot of work, and it's difficult work having to juggle all sorts of different priorities and initiatives in what is a limited budget. I spoke at the Board of Ed meeting a couple of weeks ago. I talked a lot about full-day kindergarten. I'm not going to repeat that. I'm only going to say it's not how I would make decisions with other people's money, which are taxpayers' money. But that being said, the decision was made by the board, and there it is. I did, though, want to comment on a bunch of statements that board members made about, I heard a lot of words like limited resources, fiscal responsibility, competing needs. All these things talk about making difficult decisions with other people's money, the taxpayers. We have a system in place where we have a 2% spending cap and an appropriations cap in this state. There are ways to go beyond it. This budget dips into bank cap, which is not coming from a bank, it's coming from our taxpayers' pockets. It's a big decision. When we talk about this on council, we talk about this that we're going to do this in emergency situations or in unforeseen situations. Full-day kindergarten, whatever you want to have your opinion about it, is not unforeseen, and it's not an emergency. We've talked about this for 7 years. So, I wasn't aware of your comments before, Matt, whether you agree with it, it or not. At least it should be worked into the budget. 2.6% increase in the school tax is the largest increase in 10 years. It's the first time in 10 years that the Board of Ed has asked taxpayers to spend more than the 2% cap. In my view, that's not fiscally responsible. I know the board works very, very hard. I would ask the Board of School Estimates, however, in this regard, is to ask them to work a little harder. If they want this, they should figure out how to pay for it and juggle it against other priorities and stay below the 2% cap. We complain all the time about Union County going over the cap. We're no better than that if this is what we're going to do. We have very good people in these seats. Our administration is better than, I'd put them up against anyone in this state. We can make this work. I urge you to send this back to the Board of Ed and again, make them work a little harder. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Andrea Stein, 100 West End Avenue. I want to commend the Board of Ed and the administration and everyone involved in the creation of this budget. I am beyond pleased that it includes universal full-day kindergarten at such an incrementally small number over the cap. I realize it's over the cap and it's not an ideal situation, but after year after year after year after year of being under cap, sometimes there is a year in which we need to make an investment in order to do the right thing. And as Councilman McTiernan said, this has been something that's been discussed for years. It is truly something that the vast majority of the community want, as you all know, and to make that minimal investment in 1 year after all these years of coming in under cap strikes me as a taxpayer as an investment that I am willing to make. So I thank you all, and I hope that this all turns out the way I'm hoping for. So have a good evening.
Thank you.
Hi, Rachel Brennan, 7 Fairview Avenue. I want to echo what was just said and thank everyone and say that I'm excited that this budget includes universal free full-day kindergarten for all of our 5-year-olds entering the public school system. And I'm stricken a little because while I think it's an incremental amount to include in this budget to provide kindergarten for all of our 5-year-olds, I see the situation now as a bit of an emergency. So our full-day kindergarten as it exists now in the public school, and I know I keep emphasizing public, but there's 2 barriers to entry. So first you have to win a lottery. You have to go sit in a room next to other parents and wait to see if your kid's name is pulled out of a box to see if your kid gets to go to full-day kindergarten when the person next to you's son or daughter might not. Then, if you win the lottery, then you have to pay tuition in order to attend our public full-day kindergarten. So I see these 2 barriers to entry, these 2 clear inequalities as an emergency. If inequality in our public school system exists, I see that as a problem that we need to be able to address and that we can address this year. And I'm excited and hopeful that we will be able to have equality for our 5-year-olds going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Penelope Georges. I'm at 12 Dogwood Drive. So a lot has been said on class size tonight, so I will keep it brief. I want to thank a very strong group of parents for coming together and for Superintendent Chang for hearing that voice and making their work have some meaning. What I would like to point out tonight is that while I'm appreciative of the solution for this year, I want to make sure that class size is not on the chopping block in the future again. And I want to just give some evidence that I found. So it makes intuitive sense, I think, to many of us in this room that class size will impact teachers' ability to address student needs. But to be fully clear on the subject, I turn to peer-reviewed scientific literature to really understand the subject. So researchers generally agree that lower class sizes are linked to positive educational benefits, better test scores, fewer dropouts, et cetera. Someone tonight cited the study called Project STAR, which is really considered to be the gold standard for this kind of research, and it follows students through high school and shows that academic performance is improved with small elementary class size, defined as 13 to 17 students. Poorer performers, larger class sizes, are those that reached 22 to 26 students. So just so we understand what the literature states as the benchmarks. There is some conflicting evidence against Project STAR, but it has been attributed to rapid hiring of inexperienced teachers and the lack of physical space to accommodate smaller classes. These problems do not apply to Summit. We have the space to accommodate the classes, and we have extremely talented teachers, which I don't have to tell anyone here tonight. Research that followed up on the STAR project didn't ask what, because obviously that was better academic performance, but why class size matters. So the answer is that small classes changes student engagement in the classroom. So theoretically, our talented teachers could teach and apply their good teaching practices regardless of the size of the class, but when the student engagement is not there, it takes it out of their hands. Students behave better and participate more often in small classes, so inattentive, withdrawn children that are always poor students can be brought back into the classroom. The why has more to do with student mental health. So this direct tie-in of academic success to mental health is really well illustrated in 2 recent studies published in the Journal of Public Health that focused on class size and its relationship to mental health. Class size is significantly associated with teacher connectedness, and connecting with a teacher, yes, leads to positive educational outcomes, but maybe more importantly, and I argue more importantly, it leads to emotional well-being. Building relationships with schools results in children more likely to avoid risk behaviors and to have lower academic stress levels. I'm not an elementary educator, however, I am a college educator, and I see the effects of rising academic stress on 19 and 20-year-old students every day. I hope that our community can do its best to reduce this phenomenon on whatever level we can. And to me, that means continuing to focus on individual students through controlling class size. And a major point that I'd like to make is to consider the effects not on average class size, but maximum class size, so as to not lose connection to the students that could get lost in our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Danielle Maloney. I live at 224 Oak Ridge Avenue. I have a couple of questions. Before I make my comments, how many homes are in Summit?
I think the approximately 6,500.
And 6,500. And how many students are in the current kindergarten system for Summit?
The public schools.
The public schools.
I don't know, June.
We're at 160 full day and 161 a full day and then 35, so we're around 200.
Approximately 200.
Approximately 200. And what is the number that is going to be expected to come into the school system if you guys do vote yes on the school budget?
Our number was 312.
312. And I have to use my calculator because I'm not. So 6,500 houses. What'd you say, 312? 312. So if I'm correct in my calculation here, please tell me if I'm wrong. That means, assuming that there's no twins, there's no triplets, there's no nothing in the classes, we're talking about 0.05% of the city that's going to have a kindergartner?
Well, at any given time, there's about 25% of the households in Summit have children in the public schools.
But
So,
kindergarten.
I understand. So
okay.
I'm saying so that then one of the 13 years would be a small number.
Okay. So I guess my comment to that is we're talking about increasing our taxes, everybody across the board, for a very small percentage of children. And again, I'm not going to debate the kindergarten full day, not full day. I'm just saying that that is a rather small percentage to increase the taxes on everyone. There was an example that was given at the Board of Ed meeting that the woman said, I just looked at a menu in town, and if I go to this restaurant and it's always packed, there's bottles of wine that are $40 to $300, and it's always packed. And I get what she's saying. I am sure I probably know which restaurant she's referring to. I have eaten there. I have never bought a $300 bottle of wine. And if I was going to buy a $300 bottle of wine, I would not ask everyone in that restaurant to pitch in so I could have it. There has to be another way to figure this out. And this, I think that it should be pushed back. I would like to remind the council persons who were newly elected that they did talk about not increasing our taxes. That was what you said when you talked about things. You said that there are other ways to do this. So maybe you know something that we don't, and you're planning on decreasing the city budget to accommodate this tax increase. I don't know. Maybe that's there. But I just wanted to bring those things up. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Is there anyone else from the community who would like to share their thoughts or concerns? Okay, then I will turn to members of the Board of School Estimate for your comments. Want to start, and I'll go last. Chris?
So I won't go into the Bible that I wrote for the last meeting. You can go online, you can Google that, and you can probably get a video of it if you're interested. So I just want to say just a little bit about my experience being on the board here, and then like my experience as an educator, and also just the process a little bit, very briefly. First of all, I just want to thank teachers. I was a teacher, and like generally if you can't teach, you end up becoming an administrator or something. So now I'm an administrator, so I couldn't cut it. But
I know, only administrators.
you guys accept it, right?
Right.
Like,
Except our grade
I work in a district where like I can't find a teacher for my classrooms, and my classroom sizes are 28, and I can't buy a teacher for the market. I think when I first started here, we had like 200 applications for every teacher vacancy, and that is a testament to the quality that our schools put out each and every day, year over year over year. I just want to thank teachers for everything they do. You're way underpaid, way underappreciated, and it's ridiculous in our country. It's absolutely ridiculous that my wife, who hawks credit cards to small businesses, makes more than you do. It's absolutely ridiculous. So just really briefly, I serve over 7,000 families between here and my kids in Newark. And I lose a lot of sleep trying to find ways to use limited taxpayers' dollars to improve the outcome for kids. So I just want to say that with the discourse over the past couple years, it's really made, I've lost a lot of sleep, and I want you all to know that, me as a board member, and I'm about to make this vote, I take this vote very seriously. This is my life, this is what I do every day. And so, I've been called tone deaf on Facebook, I've been called out of touch, I've been called like somebody that doesn't live in this community. I live here, I pay taxes here, I came here because my kid is in this school. And so I take this vote very, very seriously. And what we have here in Summit, we are blessed, and the entire country is jealous of what we have. Trust me, I know about 4,000 families that would give pieces of their body to be here where we are tonight. At KIPP, we say that fair is not every kid getting the same, fair is every kid getting what they need. And I firmly believe that this budget works towards a more perfect school district, where that saying could become a reality for our students. Not every district gets to say that. Please know that I vote with my wallet and with my own child in mind when I vote for this budget. And so I just want you to know that, and I want us to continue the discourse about class sizes and making sure that we have the right amount of dollars for all kids and the right amount of taxes for all Summit taxpayers and all those things. It's an honor to be in this position, and I take this vote very seriously, so thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's so nice to have all of you here. We have our council meetings every other Tuesday, basically, and we have great presentations. It's a lot of lively debate, and, please come. So thank you to Superintendent Chang and Assistant Superintendent Pepe and the whole board and the Board of Ed, and a special thanks to Mayor Radis for your tireless dedication to Summit's future. So, once again, you've presented a thoughtful and cogent budget. It's never easy to approve a budget that requires accessing our bank cap. I'm so appreciative of all the correspondence I've received on both sides of the issue of this budget, and I'm appreciative of Mr. Spur for bringing up my campaign statement. Here's what I believe. I believe that it's one thing. I believe that I've always been a supporter of universal full-day kindergarten, and this budget includes that. I believe that I have evidenced my fiscal responsibility with our 0% municipal increase last year and our 1% municipal increase this year. I think there's some things when you're on the outside looking in versus when you're on the inside looking out that look quite different. The one thing in particular that I think looks different is this revenue funding cliff that we have created by having a pay-for-play education that's brought in $700,000 plus in revenue, which I believe that we have to correct for, because I believe that is the wrong thing to do for a public education. I know that at the heart of this, I think there's a lot of uncertainty that people have about Summit right now. There's the Celgene acquisition. There's the change in the SALT deduction from the federal government that's impacting us all. But here's what I think we also know is that Summit remains strong. Our downtown retail vacancy is below 2%. We remain one of the only municipalities in New Jersey that has never lost its AAA bond rating, and I have a special thanks to Councilman McTiernan for that. Thank you. Seriously. And the Broad Street West redevelopment plan will have a major positive impact on our municipal income and ensure that we're poised for growth. So kindergarten, it's been a topic of discussion in Summit since at least back to 1943 during World War II, when I noted that the lead story in the Summit Herald was a heated debate about whether they should implement afternoon kindergarten sessions or not. But two facts really jump out to me. 90% of the municipalities in New Jersey have adopted full-day kindergarten, and 84% plus, up to 92%, I think, if we include those that want to, of our residents in Summit choose full-day kindergarten if they have the choice to do so. I know that tuition-based full-day kindergarten was a compromise position when it was adopted 5 years ago, but I believe that has become something that it was not intended to become, which is a perpetuator of inequality, and that's not what we stand for in Summit. This budget, I think the administration and the Board of Ed have worked hard to bring it down as much as they can while still maintaining the academic excellence. And that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
In many ways, this year's budget is the same as past 4 school budgets on which I voted. Superintendent Chang, Business Administrator Pepe, his dedicated business office, Kathy, our amazing principals, our amazing teachers and staff, and the Ops Committee have put in a lot of time and effort to create a budget, and I thank them for all their work. What makes this year different is, first, the budget includes a significant $1.5 million investment or resource allocation in universal full-day kindergarten, an expense that will increase year over year, and as one citizen's letter said, once you ring the bell, you can't unring it. And second, the tax increase is 2.6% over the state-mandated cap, requiring us to use bank cap, something the district has never done, and something actually in most New Jersey districts would require a townwide vote. First, regarding full-day kindergarten, an emotional and controversial topic that before discussing always requires a deep breath, so I will take a deep breath. As board members, our first priority is always the education of our students, and this includes all students of every academic and socioeconomic level. This is something I know we all agree, on which we all agree. Where the disagreement sometimes occurs is in how to allocate funds in order to accomplish this shared priority. And this year, a big allocation is FTK. Over my 5 years on the board, one of the things of which I am most proud is the increasing amount of academic performance data that the administration has been able to provide. The insight this data has given us has allowed us to make targeted allocations of funds, all of which I've approved to improve academic outcomes. For example, after reviewing first grade English language arts or ELA basic skills exit rate for 16-17 school year, which is the percentage of students who start in basic skills and how many exit that year, the district made targeted investments in literacy coaches, Orton Gillingham professional development, and increased number of weekly touch points, which almost doubled the exit rate the following year. We will be reviewing a refresh of this data this coming Wednesday in Ed Committee to ensure this trend continues. In reviewing 16-17 park data, we saw only 66% of our Brayton third graders met ELA standards. After targeted training and coaching, 89% of that same cohort met the standards the following year. These are incredible accomplishments thanks to Superintendent Chang, his cabinet, his principals, and his teachers. And at our October meeting, the board approved work with a private firm called Project 77 for strategic data analytics services on an as-needed basis. All of this data is not on thousands of kids, not nationally based, but it's on our kids, learning from our amazing teachers and our compassionate community. Regarding FDK, we have similar in-district data. To give you some background, in fall 2013, the Board of Ed approved the full-day tuition-based kindergarten program for the 14-15 school year. As the program began, the board, which at that point now included me, approved a study by the National Institute for Early Education Research, or NEER, to compare the performance of students in the Summit full-day versus half. 1 year after that, under the new leadership of Superintendent Chang, the NEER study was deemed inconclusive, and Superintendent Chang said he felt a study could be done more effectively internally with school personnel. Education chair agreed and said the hope was a study involving Summit instructors who actually taught Summit kindergartens would be more effective. The superintendent also said that he did not see a downside to instructors spending more time with students, but it would take 2 to 3 years to determine whether the program might be considered for students. The external data, he said, was still being fully developed, and the program needed to be tracked with Summit students. As a board member, I, along with many people in the public, agreed. In October 18, after 4 years of running the full-day tuition-based program, with available data, primarily first grade basic skills data, on 745 students, 413 who had been through full day, 332 in the half day, Superintendent Chang introduced his plan to implement universal full day at an annual cost of $1.5 million. During the public meeting, I asked about the data on the 4 years Summit had run the program. Mr. Chang said academic differences for students entering first grade were minimal. Other board members asked about the data as well. Board member Cologne asked if it had been proven there was a general difference walking in first grade for those who completed the full day versus half. Board member Wong asked for data on our own students. Mr. Chang said since the program is so new, the data is young and will take years to collect, but that the kids feel great and the students are all smiles. At public meetings, several members of the community asked, what is the academic problem we are trying to solve? And they were met with similar responses: observation-based, anecdotal, and some references to national data, with little weight being placed on the 4 years of first grade data, performance data we collected on our own students. I, like many, see some value in full day versus half day, and a part of me would love to just say yes based on this anecdotal information. But the other part of me, the one that voted, believes that as a public school district with limited funds, it is critical to ensure we are putting our money where it can be best utilized, supported by data, and helping all of our kids, particularly those who need it most. So in the November board meeting, I stated that although Ed Committee saw value in FDK, was moving it to the Ops Committee, many of us still had open questions on the return on investment and prioritization with other district initiatives that needed to be answered. And the thought was these questions would be answered as trade-offs were considered during the budget process, a necessary exercise if we were to remain under cap. Unfortunately for me, at least, these questions were never answered. Because whether explicitly stated or not, any new program with a 7-digit price tag has inherent trade-offs, which impact all 4,000 students in our district. If not now, then down the road when budget pressures arise and other more easily reversible programs might force to be cut. At the February meeting, Mr. Pepe stated we will most likely not accumulate bank cap in the future in response to someone's question, due to the fact that the year-over-year increases in teacher healthcare contributions ended in 2015, and the state aid increases we have experienced in the years after that will have likely come to an end. In other words, we will most likely be bumping against the 2% going forward. The class size debate occurring over the past few weeks is another example of my concerns over future budget pressures. Superintendent Chang stated that this year's budget will be able to handle the section adjustments as enrollment is finalized this summer, which is great. But there are two real estate trends that concern me. First, there are new housing developments popping up all over town, including, I just read, 9 3-bedroom units near Kings, new 2- and 3-bedroom units near Chase Bank, and the plan for new residential units, potentially in buildings as high as 6 stories, downtown as part of the Broad Street redevelopment, to name a few. And as you will read in any real estate update you receive in the mail, due to tax law changes, house inventories are rising as older residents with school-aged kids are moving out and residents with school-aged kids are moving in. And although I can't project if enrollment will increase or by how much, in order to keep class sizes where they are today, which as we've heard loud and clear is important to parents, capital spend and/or hiring decisions may need to be made in the near future. These real estate trends, along with unstable state aid and unknown healthcare premium increases, lead me to personally believe that by not making trade-off decisions now, we have simply delayed tough budget choices down the road when it will be too late to have a meaningful community-wide discussion of universal full-day kindergarten's priority over other programs and other priorities. I want to personally thank those who have written us emails and who have attended one or several of our meetings. I know it can be daunting to walk up to the microphone in front of your friends and neighbors to speak up, but it's an important part of this process as the board makes very important decisions on behalf of the community, so thank you. In making the decision, I read all of your emails and listened to all the comments. There were a lot of great points, some of which I agree. This one I'll dedicate to Ms. Brennan, which is I have heard the concerns that the lottery is unpleasant and stressful, and I agree. I hear parents' concerns that 3 hours is a short day and often shorter than other pre-K programs, and I agree. But I do think if we were willing to look at more creative ways to solve it, that we could. There were also some points of view which I did not agree. One point in which I 100% agree on intent but not solution is the economic equity issue. For me, given we have data to prove or disprove whether this is an academic outcome issue for our summit students in our half-day program being taught by our amazing teachers, but haven't, makes it hard for me to believe that $1.5 million can't possibly be spent more effectively to help these students in other ways or at other times throughout their K-12 experience within our district. Some members think we should approve it based on demand by parents. For me, this might work for a volleyball program that might be $8,000, but for a $1.5 million program, I cannot. Some argue we should approve it based on the fact that everybody's doing it, and in some cases, extending the argument to a concern that young families might not move here if we don't have it. For me, the fact that Summit offers such a highly ranked K-12 program even before universal FDK, and that many of the top schools surrounding us also are housing market competitors, such as Chatham, New Providence, Berkeley Heights, and Westfield, don't have it, I cannot. And some believe we should approve it to show our support for the administration. As everyone knows, I have a lot of respect for this administration and have supported them on pretty much every initiative throughout my 5 years on the board. But our role as an independent board is to represent our students and the community as these large decisions are made. So for me, this is not sufficient reason to support the budget. Secondary to the educational resource allocation issue is the general tax issue. As one community member said, and I agree, our job as the Board of Ed is not to lower your taxes. I agree. But our job is to spend your tax dollars wisely while also taking into account the tax and housing price environment and that our community is experiencing. Unfortunately for all of us, the tax and home value pressures that Summit citizens are feeling are real. Senate President Sweeney said in his January op-ed, our state faces a dire fiscal crisis that threatens our economic future, our housing values, and the quality of life of every New Jerseyan. And within our city, we face pressures. The likelihood of a new $12 million fire station, which I understand will double the city's debt service. A real estate market with growing inventories, particularly for more expensive homes, which as sales prices reduce and homes are reassessed could impact the tax revenue we receive. And a Broad Street redevelopment plan that, although promised to increase ratables, is in its early stages, will require upfront capital investments, and the potential tax benefits are still unquantified in many years down the road. And of course, the new SALT deductibility on property taxes, which means someone who was able to get $5,000 refunded on their $15,000 of taxes will now only get back $3,000, an immediate $2,000 tax increase. I could go on and on at the risk of depressing us all, but I will stop. But given these stark realities, when I hear citizens expressing their concerns about their ability to continue to live in Summit, their concerns of being able to sell their home, and their concerns about the process by which the board is making large, impactful investment decisions now and in the future, I listen. One board member commented that many of these citizens didn't come out until they heard the tax impact. Maybe this is because they were surprised the budget was over cap, given our history of always remaining under cap. And these taxpayers, like any reasonable taxpayer, want to better understand whether or not their money is being invested wisely, and that is their right. At the March 7th meeting, I would estimate about 200 people were there. Parents, principals, teachers, citizens, and it was a great turnout, so thank you all who came. At the beginning, I informally polled the audience to ask who was for and against the 2.6 budget increase. Whatever the reason might be, I would estimate it was probably about half and half, which of course is not a scientific poll, but a stark reminder that from a community perspective, this budget is not a no-brainer. Since that meeting, when, as most of you know, I was the one of the 6-to-1 vote, I have received a lot of informal feedback from the community, similar to what Mr. Bonner was saying. At King's, at my son's 6th grade basketball party, texts from friends, and pretty much everywhere I go. But in typical Summit fashion, the feedback on both sides, for the most part, is respectful, which I am very grateful. All of us said at the end of the day, the vote's about whether or not I, Deb McCann, Board of Ed President, representative of the Summit students and the community, believe this budget best supports all 4,000 students of this district in a financially responsible way. And based on, for me, the lack of in-district academic data to demonstrate either a sufficient return on investment or an academic performance issue that needs to be solved with a $1.5 million investment, the lack of more robust resource allocation discussions on the prioritization of universal full-day kindergarten versus other initiatives, and the fact that the budget is over 2% cap, which for me is not reasonable given the current tax environment in which our community is living. So just as I voted on March 7th, I will vote no again. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Marjorie.
Thank you, Mayor. Over the past few months, I have heard and considered the concerns of the community. I've received a number of emails that I've read carefully. And I feel very fortunate to live in a city that has so many civically engaged members. I commend you all for your willingness to participate in this process. And I want to explain why I'm voting for this budget, and I will then address the concerns about class size that have been raised by many parents tonight. This vote is on the Board of Education's budget, which balances the educational needs of the students with the demands on the Summit taxpayers. This year, the Board of Education has proposed a budget which implements universal full-day kindergarten. When I ran for Common Council in 2017, I spoke to thousands of Summit residents and found overwhelming support in the community for universal full-day kindergarten, even from those without children who could make use of the program. Among parents of kindergartners, there's clearly high demand for this program. 84% of Summit's kindergarten students attend the full-day tuition-based program, with most parents or families paying $5,500 per child. Many of the students in the half-day program are only there because they could not enter the lottery, because they entered the lottery and lost, or because they were not able to afford the full-day tuition of $5,500. For the past 5 years, we have been balancing the Board of Education budget on the backs of full-day kindergarten families who've been asked to pay tuition in addition to their taxes. The costs of this program should be borne by the entire community, as are all the other programs offered by Summit's public schools. Living in a community means that we share the costs of all the services that Summit offers. Even if we don't make use of them, we don't get to pick and choose how our tax dollars are spent based on our own personal usage. The $5,500 tuition per child in the current tuition-based kindergarten program is a hardship for many families here in Summit, and it's also a tax on the middle class. I feel strongly that public education programs should be free to all students of Summit, regardless of their family's abilities to pay. Public education is a great equalizer, giving all students an equal opportunity to succeed. The first step is to make full-day kindergarten universally available to all of Summit's youngest students. Full-day kindergarten is not only an investment in our students, it's an investment in our community. Without full-day kindergarten, Summit is at a competitive disadvantage. This would affect our property values as young families choose to purchase homes in other towns in the area instead of Summit. 90% of the communities in New Jersey offer full-day kindergarten, and Summit should not find itself in the bottom 10% of kindergarten programs. 6 school districts in New Jersey with comparable socioeconomic factors to Summit have implemented universal full-day kindergarten in the past 18 months, and 2 more are in the process of doing so. This is a trend in New Jersey and nationwide. We in Summit pride ourselves on our excellent school system and always being ahead of the curve, and I think in this case we need to do the same. I am proud that this year the Board of Education has proposed a budget which implements universal full-day kindergarten. On a separate note, many parents have expressed their concerns about class size in the elementary schools. However, this vote tonight is only on the Board of Education budget, and it is not an endorsement of every school policy, including class size allocations. I agree that class size is extremely important, and one of the key roles of parents is to advocate for their children's needs. I urge you to continue to do this with the superintendent, the Board of Education, and the school principals. Superintendent Chang has said that the class size guidelines have not changed in over 9 years. He's also said that he will continue to monitor the class sizes and will add additional sections to any grade where the enrollment is at or above the policy guidelines at the end of the sectioning process in August. Superintendent Chang has also assured us that the budget being voted on today has sufficient flexibility to allow him to add these additional class sections. I commend the hard work of Superintendent Chang, Assistant Superintendent Pepe, the Board of Education, the Operations Committee, and all the supervisors and educators at all the schools for their hard work on this budget. I would also like to thank everyone who's participated in this process by writing letters, attending meetings, and organizing both for and against this budget. I'm proud to be a member of a community like Summit, where we're able to come together and have a civil discussion about important issues. I enthusiastically cast my vote in favor of this budget and its investment in Summit's future.
Thank you, Councilwoman Fox.
Thank you.
So one of the downside of going last is that you run the risk of being a little repetitive, so bear with me, it's short. So first of all, I definitely want to add my thanks to the members of the Board of Education who volunteer long hours to provide the best education in a fiscally responsible way for the children of the Summit Public Schools. Thank you also Superintendent Chang, Assistant Superintendent Pepe, and Assistant Business Administrator Sarno. Thank you very much for your hard work, and all the members of your staff. Coming up with a budget like this is a difficult task, and especially when you are so invested in creating a balanced budget that benefits all of the students. Of course, I certainly want to thank the teachers, the principals, the other administrators. It all starts with you. And no matter the class size, I know that you all strive to do your very best to provide the most superior education to our students that you can. So truly, I thank you. And then last but not least, I want to thank the parents. It's a partnership between the schools and the parents, and the more you are involved, the better we're all going to be. And the notion of having parents involved in the school system coming to board meetings is really strong. I spoke with some parents the other day in my office. We used to have, the PTO always used to have Board of Ed liaisons, and I don't know where that went. I was one years ago. Too many years than I'd like to count, but it's an important way to be involved in your community. So I encourage you to continue that. I view this budget as an investment in our town and in our children. As mayor, I am deeply concerned about the cost of living in Summit. Council members and I take our responsibilities as fiduciaries very seriously. In 2018, we reported an increase of $25 million in ratables, and last year, ratables increased by nearly $10 million. We're working on a redevelopment plan, as has been mentioned, on Broad Street West, from which we expect a significant increase in tax revenue. Currently, those 10 acres of prime real estate yield only $200,000 in taxes, half of which support the schools. I believe it is important not only to limit tax increases, but also to create other sources of revenue. I am proud of the careful and measured approach that the city took to the issue of full-day kindergarten, from the thoughtful institution of a pilot program in 2014 to the comprehensive and rigorous evaluation process of our paid professional staff and our Board of Education. Our superintendent, supported by the resulting experience of our first-grade teachers, has concluded that our students will be best served by a full-day program. Although change is difficult, it seems clear to me, in this case, that it is warranted, and that Summit should join the more than 90% of school districts in New Jersey that currently offer full-day kindergarten. The parents of young children in our town have clearly identified their preference for full-day kindergarten, given that we have currently 10 sections of full-day and only 2 sections of half-day. I understand the concerns of parents who are worried about class size, and I trust Superintendent Chang will be true to his word that no elementary class section will be at or above the policy guidelines at the end of the sectioning process in August. I also trust Mr. Pepe's statement that there is room in this budget to allow the superintendent to keep his commitment. We have wonderful schools, and this budget provides our teachers and administrators the tools to deliver an excellent education to our children. Full-day kindergarten is not the only driver of the budget increase. It includes a 5% health care increase and a 2.8% contractual salary increase that we must pay to our world-class teaching staff. I believe the social and emotional learning reinforced in a strong kindergarten program taught by experienced and talented professionals is a vital component in the quality education system that the strong majority of the people of Summit want. Just as with our own family budgets, the Board of School Estimate makes hard choices to make sure that we are providing the best possible educational environment for our children with the resources we have. So I will be voting yes to this budget. Mr. Pepe?
Okay, Madam Mayor, I need a mover and a seconder, and then I will read the resolution and then call the roll.
I so move.
Second.
Second was, okay. Marjorie Fox. Whereas pursuant to NJSA 18A 22-7, the Board of Education of the City of Summit has delivered the 2019-2020 school budget to the Board of School Estimate of the City of Summit, and whereas the total amount of the budget is $70,780,078, with the amount of $65,668,859 determined to be necessary to be appropriated from local property taxes to support said budget. Now therefore be it whereas that the Board of School Estimate does hereby fix and determine the sum of $65,668,859 is necessary to be appropriated for use of the City of Summit Public Schools for the 2019-2020 school year. And be it further resolved, the Board of School Estimate previously determined and certified to the Common Council of the City of Summit that the amount of $64,005,589 was necessary to be appropriated for the use of the City of Summit Public Schools for the 2018-2019 school year. And be it further resolved that the Board of School Estimate does hereby certify to the Common Council of the City of Summit that the amount of $32,002,795 is necessary for the use of the City of Summit Public Schools for the period of January 1, 2019 to June 30th, 2019, and the amount of $32,834,430 is necessary for the use of the City of Summit Public Schools for the period of July 1, 2019 to December 31st, 2019, or a total amount of $64,837,224 for calendar year 2019, and be it further resolved that the Secretary is hereby directed to deliver copies of this resolution, which shall also serve as certificates to the Common Council of the City of Summit and to the Board of Education of the City of Summit. On the roll, I have the mayor moved it and Councilwoman Fox seconded it. I'll start with Councilwoman Fox.
Yes.
Councilman Gould?
Aye.
Board President McCann?
No.
Board Member Bonner?
Yes.
And Mayor Radist?
Yes.
Okay, the motion does carry, and just one point of order, Madam Mayor. I know I read about the your vote only being counted as a tie. That is incorrect.
Right.
On the Board of School Estimate, your vote counts regardless. When we call the roll at a courtesy, we call the mayor last, and therefore, if there happens to be a tie, your vote would be the tiebreaker.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.